Would you let someone or several people walk all over you like a doormat in order for a chance to level up, say at your job or in life in general? Well, that's the plot of Billy Wilder's The Apartment from 1960, starring Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine. This is the first time I've watched it, and I'm going to admit to you right now that it was difficult to watch, because even though it's a fiction, even though it's a movie, it's hard to watch someone be that pathetic. So the idea is that Jack Lemmon's character, C.C. Baxter, works for a corporation of business. He's one of many, right? They open with these shots of him being just one little nut or bolt in this huge machine. He doesn't matter. And he thinks he's got a golden ticket for working his way up, which is he's going to let his superiors, his bosses, use his apartment for their affairs. It's crazy that there are so many affairs happening at this company. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if that's typical. Is that typical? I'm not a cubicle 9-to-5 guy, so maybe that's happening all the time. I have no idea. Or maybe it was happening back then. But that's his plan. That's his golden ticket to getting promotions down the line, is to win favor with his bosses by letting them sleep with various women in his bed. Now, the initial reaction, the normal reaction, I think, is if your boss comes to you and says, "Do you mind if I use your bed to have sex with a bunch of people?" is to say, obviously, no thanks. In fact, here's my resignation. The reason it was so difficult is because he does the opposite of that. He's pathetic, right? And he thinks that that's going to win favor. But I kept thinking as I'm watching it, like, why would you respect someone like that? You know, wouldn't they just keep using him? Like, it turns out that, you know, this movie's 40, 65 years old, so I'm just going to spoil the ending. Turns out it basically works, almost. He gets what he wants, but he loses something in the transaction. Nevertheless, you would think 9 times out of 10, if I were his friend, I'd be like, dude, this is not going to work. They're not going to respect you. They don't think you have a backbone. So why would they trust company deals and all that to you in the future if they were going to give you a better position? So it was tough to watch, and I actually stopped watching it for a few days because he was so pathetic that it was just hard to, view. And that's typical for me. I will stop a movie if I need to reset and think about it. And when I came back, which always happens as well, I got pulled into the story with great story writing and a great emotional moment. So the story writing is brilliant, I think. And one of the ways that it's brilliant is that the main character, Baxter, is in love with a woman who works at this company, but she works in the elevator, which I guess they had enough money to employ someone who runs the elevators. So he's in love with her, and his boss, the top dog, is having an affair with that woman that he loves and using his apartment. What happens is he finds her mirror, like little compact, is that what you call it? Like where it's cracked? I don't know if that's the right terminology. Anyway, he finds that mirror in his couch, gives it to his boss, and then later on he sees the woman he loves pull it out, and he recognizes it because it's the same color and it's cracked. And I thought, that is so brilliant to pull these things together. That is great story writing to have that, he's having that. As soon as he sees the mirror, he's having the epiphany like, oh my God, my boss is having an affair with the woman that I love. So that's the first thing that really pulled me in. The second thing, which probably could be the first thing actually, is that his boss gives him tickets to the Music Man while he's using his apartment. And he asks the woman to come have a drink with him, to come to the Music Man, and then they can go out of the town because he loves her. And she doesn't show because she's at the apartment with his boss. And when he's standing out front looking down the streets for any sign of her, and she can, you can kind of tell that she's not coming, that's the moment where I really got pulled in and thought, this has got to turn around for this guy. How is this going to turn around? And of course it does, and that's one of the rewarding things about this movie, I think, is that you watch someone who starts out very pathetic, who is a doormat, who's willingly doing this, by the way. It's not like he's just trying to stand up to him and he can't. No, this is his plan. This is his golden ticket to try and move up and take over the company or something like that. But the beautiful thing about the story is that you watch him develop a backbone, which I thought was really clever. And of course he does. By the end of it, I'm not entirely sure though what he achieved. I take that back. I do know what he achieved. He achieved the backbone. And he also achieved some sort of a relationship with the woman, because once she found out at a New Year's Eve party that Baxter had quit because he didn't want to be in this little game where the boss gets to use his apartment, he stood up for himself and said, and became clear to her that he loves her, right? And I think she was really touched by that because she was clearly in a bad place. And even though she doesn't love him, she still runs away from the director and goes right to Baxter's apartment. Now, the interesting thing to me at the end is that, and it kind of fits, I like the honesty of this moment, is that he confesses, they're playing cards, and he says, you know, I'm just so in love with you. And she says, shut up and deal. You know, she doesn't say it back. He says it twice, actually. And he gets it, I think, you know, and it implies to me that they're going to, you know, have like a very short relationship, if any at all, maybe just become friends, maybe FWBs, something like that, but that it's not going to be anything more. So I really appreciate the honest moment there of like, you know, you earned your backbone. I respect you. You seem like a very decent guy. I'm glad I'm here with you in your apartment, but this isn't going to happen. The other thing I really liked was that once Baxter stood up to his boss and said, I'm not going to be party to this little game you're playing here anymore. You can take this job and shove it, is that he immediately goes home and starts packing his stuff, and he's moving out, and he's going to go somewhere else. And when when Fran gets there, she asks him, are you moving? And he said, yeah. And I don't know if maybe it was her or the doctor, but he just kind of said, you know, I don't know, another job, another town, I don't know. And I love that happened because it feels to me like he's got this momentum, this energy where he's leveled himself up. You know, he didn't have to go through this process to find his backbone well, he did, but I mean, if he had just found that energy or that thing inside of himself first, he wouldn't have had to have gone through all that. I mean, that's a chicken and the egg kind of scenario, but you take my point. So I think it's really fascinating that he's not just quit his job, but he's also like, I can't be in this apartment anymore because it reminds me of how many people I let have sex in my bedroom and then probably just went to sleep. Did you wash the sheets? Did you change them? He seems like a decent guy. I'm guessing you'd probably change them, but he doesn't seem like a guy who has a lot of money. So anyway, I really enjoyed the movie. I had a tough time getting into it at first, but I'm such a sucker for those black and white movies. They're just so fucking cool, man. You know, and they just put you into a certain mood. You feel relaxed, and there's just this beautiful sort of flow to black and white. Even if it's a tense moment, there's just like a way that people spoke to each other back then that seems to be, I don't know, a little bit more thoughtful and calmer. I mean, they weren't checking their Instagram every 50 seconds, and they weren't yelling about whatever things we seem to yell about, and they're not as distracted. You know, I remember they came out the same year as Hitchcock's Psycho, 1960, I believe, and I remember watching the movie and noticing that there was a scene at the beginning where Anthony Perkins' character is talking to the woman that he eventually kills in the shower. And I want to say, my memory is that the shot held on him for 19 seconds. Give or take a few seconds, whatever it is. That's a long fucking time. Not for me, I love that kind of shit. But for today's audience, it's a long time. So I really appreciate the long breaths that they took, and that's probably part of the charm of it for sure, but it's also part of the vibe and the mood that's really easy for me to just kind of slide in there. This movie also won Best Picture, won a lot of Academy Awards. Psycho was another one that was that year, but I don't think Psycho won hardly anything, which is really astonishing. Maybe Best Score? I mean, isn't Shostakovich good enough for the Academy? I don't know, but Best Picture, you know, I'm not saying it's not a good movie, The Apartment. Best Picture, I don't know. I guess, you know, sometimes it depends on who your competitors are, but I don't want to slam it. I thought it was a really good movie, and I enjoyed it, and I'd love to hear what you think. Put it below. Let me know if you haven't seen it. Or are you going to go see it? It's on Criterion right now. That's where I saw it. So let me know what you think. Put it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. The Apartment, Billy Wilder, Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, classic. And remember to sign up for the movie raffle club on Patreon. Every month I draw a name out and I send you surprise DVDs. What more could you ask for other than tangible appreciation for support?